Launched in 1989, the original Game Boy became portable gaming's clear market leader, thanks to its relatively small size, its low cost, and its fantastic battery life, not to mention the help of some killer franchises like Tetris, Mario and Kirby. Nintendo's competitors also released some handhelds, some fantastic handhelds in fact, but they were all larger than the Game Boy, more expensive, and they absolutely ate through batteries. Sega's Game Gear put up the biggest fight to the Game Boy, having a market-leading brand name, colour graphics and an extensive game selection. But in this David vs Goliath fight, Nintendo's little grey box made an absolute mockery of the Sega Game Gear, convincingly outselling it and forcing Sega to discontinue the model by 1996. Then, in 96, when sales of the ageing handheld might have been expected to slow down, Pokémon arrived and catapulted the Game Boy to previously unseen levels of popularity. Pokémon first launched in Japan and within a year had sold over 10 million copies. Interest in the Game Boy was higher than ever and it seemed like everyone wanted to go try and catch them all. The problem? Having previously sold a combined 61 million Game Boys and Game Boy Pockets, there was no shortage of handhelds already in homes and used electronic stores around the world. If Nintendo's hardware division were going to capitalise on the popularity of Pokémon, they needed something to get people buying their handhelds again, and quick. The obvious answer was to release a new handheld that would entice people away from their beloved beige Pocket Pal. But getting people to jump ship and switch is never easy, and with the Game Boy system being so hugely popular, that was doubly difficult, with many gamers already heavily invested in the system's 1,000 title game library. As we saw in the previous episode, the original Game Boy was quite a technical underachiever, with a basic 4-shade display and a very simplistic architecture. The challenge for the design team wasn't going to be finding ways of improving upon the original design. The challenge was not leaping so far ahead that the existing library of games became instantly obsolete. Therefore, the target for Nintendo's designers was to create a new system with enticing new features whilst remaining backwards compatible with the original model's games. To that end, the designers began work on the now fondly remembered Game Boy Color. Although more advanced than the original model, the Color is still far from groundbreaking in terms of technical prowess, being only an evolution rather than a revolution of the original late 80s hardware. However, the Color managed to address a lot of the original model's main criticisms, without having to compromise on size, battery life or ease of use. While components were shrunk down and streamlined, at its heart the Color still runs the same sharp LR35902 CPU as its older brother. However, the CPU of the Color is capable of running at the same 4.194 MHz as the original Game Boy for full backwards compatibility, or at double the clock rate, 8.388 MHz, giving some extra oomph to help handle colour detail and allow some increased game complexity. Also, the work RAM was quadrupled from 8 to 32 kilobytes, and the video RAM from 8 to 16 kilobytes. Cartridges could also add an additional 128 kilobytes to the system. Space for game ROM was also upped from the original model's 1 MB maximum to 8 MB. But of course, the most significant and obvious change was the inclusion of a full colour screen. At last, after 9 years of wishes from players, 9 years of pleading from developers, and 9 years of bashing by its rivals, the Game Boy finally got a cutting-edge, colour backlit screen. Except it wasn't backlit, and by 1998, it was far from being cutting edge. Still, after 9 years of that cabbage-coloured blur, this dim, low-res offering was still more than we'd let ourselves hope for. The display has the same 166 by 144 pixel resolution as the original model, but now utilises TFT technology rather than LCD. This gives the display a much greater clarity and pixel response than the original model. The display has a palette of over 32,000 colours and can display 56 of them at a time. There are 3 different cartridge types compatible with the Color Game Boy. Firstly, the system is fully backwards compatible with the original monochrome light grey cased Game Boy cartridges. When running these legacy titles, the handheld defaults to assigning different colours for each of the original system's 4 green shades. Extra colours are also assigned to moving sprites and backgrounds, giving even more colour in a legacy title. The player can swap the assigned colour palette for these older titles by pressing different button combinations at startup, or the colour can be removed entirely for a more familiar grey look. Next up is the dual mode cartridges. Usually dark grey in appearance, these cartridges work on the original Game Boy in a familiar 4-shade mode. However, they also contain additional colour information, meaning that when used in a colour Game Boy, they have much richer preset colour schemes than the original light grey cartridges. Last up is the clear cartridges. These are dedicated Game Boy Color cartridges, as they required a higher processor speed and additional features exclusive to the newer model. The lack of a cutout means they won't allow an original model Game Boy to switch on, while pocket models display a failure message. Games on these cartridges tend to be the most graphically rich and complex. With the most prominent change to the new handheld being the colour screen, Nintendo